Hi all, two quick announcements. First, today, Tuesday, April 26th, at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, we will sell the NFT tickets to 5 book clubs to discuss my book, The Cryptopians. All the book clubs, which are limited to 22 participants each, will be hosted by me and will take place on my Discord from May 2nd to May 10th. 2 of the book clubs will feature special guests, one with Christoph Jensch, Griff Green, and Lefteris Karapetzis, who are all involved in the DAO, and the other with Andrei Tarnowski of Chat Roulette. The sale is taking place on Bitsky, again today at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can see my profile there at bitsky.com/@laurashin/created. The dates and times for the book clubs are first, Monday, May 2nd from 8 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday, May 3rd at 1 p.m. Eastern with Lefteris, Griff, and Christoph, Thursday, May 5th from 12 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern, Monday, May 9th at 12 p.m. Eastern with Andrei Tarnowski, and finally, Tuesday, May 10th at 3 p.m. Eastern. The dates and times are also in the show notes, and you will also find them in the newsletter. Also, at noon today, beforehand, I'll be doing a Twitter Spaces with Bitsky on their Twitter account, which is at BITSKI. After the Twitter Spaces, the sale will begin. Second, I'm hiring for 3 part-time roles. One is for a video/audio producer, another for editorial assistant, and a third for social media and marketing manager. If you're interested, check out the show notes for this episode, or the Unchained daily newsletter, or my Twitter feed. And now, onto the show. Hi everyone, welcome to Unchained, your no-hype resource for all things crypto. I'm your host, Laura Shin, author of The Cryptopians. I started covering crypto 6 years ago, and as the senior editor at Forbes, was the first mainstream media reporter to cover cryptocurrency full-time. This is the April 26th, 2022 episode of Unchained. This episode of Unchained is brought to you by Beefy Finance, the multi-chain yield optimizer. Beefy is the easiest way to earn more from your crypto. Deposit funds into Beefy's secure vaults to auto-compound yields across 12 blockchains. Got crypto? Choose Beefy. Welcome to a new world of crypto-friendly banking with Cross River Bank. Request your fiat on-off ramp solution now at crossriver.com/crypto. Galaxis. Create unstoppable communities by issuing NFTs with interactive dynamic utility traits that allow any creator to engage with, reward, and monetize their following. Buy, earn, and spend crypto on the Crypto.com app. New users can enjoy 0 credit card fees on crypto purchases in the first 30 days. Download the Crypto.com app and get $25 with the code LAURA, link in the description. Today's guest is Amy Wu, head of FTX Ventures and Gaming Initiatives. Welcome, Amy.
Hey, Laura.
You went from being a partner at Lightspeed Ventures to heading up M&A and ventures at FTX. Tell us what it is that you do for FTX.
So I started at FTX at the beginning of this year. I actually had the pleasure of meeting Sam Bankman-Fried, our CEO, earlier last year when he was raising his first institutional round, and was just honestly so compelled by him and the vision and everything that FTX is doing that thought it was a really unique time in the company's life cycle and was thrilled to join. And similarly to almost everybody at FTX, I wear multiple hats. I spend a lot of my time playing a leadership role with FTX Ventures, but then also our global M&A efforts, and then also our gaming business. We've been obviously talking with almost all the largest gaming companies in the world and seeing how we can support them as a technology partner as they're launching into Web3, and so that's been super exciting as well.
And you're really into gaming, from what I understand. Talk a little bit about your background and your journey and how you got into both gaming and crypto.
Yeah, I've been a gaming investor actually longer than crypto. So first time got into gaming. Well, first of all, I was a lifelong gamer. Really grew up playing first-person shooters and a lot of other games with my little brother. And then professionally first started covering gaming when I was an investor at Insight. And this was probably 8, 9 years ago now. when we were sort of majority shareholders in Jagex RuneScape, and also looked at a number of other large gaming companies at the time from an investor lens. And then subsequently, I also covered gaming esports when I was an executive at Discovery, the global media company. And so then naturally, when I was a partner at Lightspeed as an investor, I led our gaming investing and had, supported companies like Fortnite, Epic Games, 1047 Games, and a number of other studios. And so that's kind of like a long history. And then on the crypto side, actually my really good friend Paul from Pantera got me into the space. We were angel investing together back in 2017. And then I led crypto investing for Lightspeed from like beginning of last year. And obviously I'm spend most of my time covering crypto investing, and particularly Web3 now.
So in February, FTX US announced that it is launching a new gaming unit to help gaming studios incorporate NFTs into their games. And at the time you tweeted, at FTX, we offer an end-to-end solution of our core product to launch NFTs and tokens, a custodial wallet with non-custodial integrations, primary and secondary trading, compliance and licensing, and more, all white labeled and in-house. Can you talk about what it is that vision of that product that FTX US will be providing to gaming studios?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to try to bring this to life with an example. So say you're a gaming company and you have, your own gaming account, let's say, and a player who signs up for one of your games, actually, the first thing they do is they spin up an account that's owned by the studio. And so the idea is that if a gaming studio wants to launch Web3 elements, fungible or non-fungible token, a lot of pieces of that, let's say the wallets, the marketplace is, I would say, fairly commoditized. But what is not is the compliance around that. So, as FTX, we support something like around $16 billion of transactions, crypto transactions per day. We're also in over 160 jurisdictions. We spend up north of $1 billion last year just acquiring companies to acquire essentially licensing fiat crypto on-ramps across the globe in order to facilitate crypto transactions in a compliant environment. And that is actually kind of the hardest thing for example, publicly traded company or a large company to be able to do on their own. And you can imagine in this case, you're a player and you just grind it in the game and you're collecting an NFT item. Well, potentially when I collect that item, it actually drops into a white labeled FTX custodial wallet. And as a player, I have no idea I'm actually working with FTX. At this point, I just think I'm literally just collecting items in the game. However, that gaming studio now has a compliant environment in which to hold those in-game assets. And then the item can then subsequently be potentially transferred into an open marketplace in order to trade either within the walls of that gaming studio or in a fully open NFT marketplace. And so there's a lot of different ways to implement those user flows, but this is sort of an illustrative way of, how to compliantly offer Web3 elements as a gaming studio to your player, but also in a way that doesn't disrupt the natural flows of a player that's just used to playing games. And the alternative is, you can have them download a non-custodial wallet and then maybe go on FTX or Coinbase and buy tokens, transfer it to their wallet, then integrate that into your game. The friction is just so much higher in terms of onboarding. And, one of the core theses that we have is that the majority of players are actually just going to play the game rather than actually interact and trade an in-game item, on-chain or not. And so therefore, those are the players that a studio should be catering to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that all makes sense, what you said at the end. But one thing that I have to admit is at first I kind of didn't understand the compliance for just NFTs. What are you talking, mainly tokens, or what are the compliance parts for NFTs?
So it turns out that one of the most regulated parts of operating in crypto is this conversion from fiat to crypto. So if I'm a consumer and I want to actually pay $1, I want to put my credit card or debit card or transfer USD and convert that into a cryptocurrency or asset of any sort. That is actually one of the highest, most regulated parts of that transaction. And depending on what jurisdiction it is around across the world, there's different licensing and banking partners that you need in order to facilitate that part of the transaction. There's also money transfer licensing that you need in order to transfer assets of value. And that's another regulatory layer on top of that. And so, I think, we like to think at FTX is that we have actually the biggest network of licenses around the globe, US and also outside the US, in order to help facilitate this specific, this transaction. And, most of the large gaming companies are actually global. And so this is something where down the road at some point, their GC and their compliance team are going to be asking, all right, are we allowed to do what you want to actually do in game? And that's where I think we can provide the most value, since as a global crypto exchange, compliant transactions is actually sort of our core value that we provide.
So FTX is also spending $100 million with Lightspeed, your former firm, and Solana to spur integration of Solana into video games. In general, I'm noticing like this, huge focus on gaming as a category. Why is that?
Gaming has really captured a lot of people's, sort of imagination as one of the biggest potential sources of onboarding mainstream audiences into crypto. Because today, we're in sort of like the millions of people that are holding crypto, and we still have another sort of billions of people to go around that. I do think we need fun, entertaining, and also like real use cases in crypto beyond just trading crypto and having it be store of value. And that's finally coming online this year. And we're really excited about that in ventures. But specifically for gaming, some stats are kind of $200 billion revenue industry last year, 2 to 3 billion gamers globally. If you include sort of mobile platform, and then now kind of up and coming like browser platform as a game as well. And so therefore, it's just such a huge number of people to potentially onboard, especially if you consider that gamers have essentially valued digital assets longer than almost anybody, with buying and trading, grinding for in-game assets. And so originally, people in Web3 and crypto have thought, well, owning that asset is just the natural next step in terms of that in-game item being an NFT. However, obviously there's been a huge backlash in the gaming industry, gamers in particular, against this concept of Web3 and NFTs. And so it's been pretty fascinating. I was recently at GDC, largest gaming conference in the, this year, and it's feeling that tug and pull. Most gaming companies, I would say at least at the CEO level, typically are very excited. Large gaming companies always have dozens of experiments that they're working with, right? They have dozens of titles, some of you that are huge and others in production. And so therefore, most of the large gaming companies that we were talking to have some experiments or innovation sort of brewing in the Web3 space, because, if this does become a massive sort of $1 trillion industry, then they don't, in games, they don't want to miss out. And so therefore, it's just been an area of intense interest and a lot of activity that a lot of partners, vendors, like ourselves are spending a lot of time with.
So yeah, I definitely want to talk about that backlash. But first, let's just talk a little bit about this history that gaming has around incorporating like money or objects of value into earning or into play. Because as far as I understand, like before crypto came along, there was this concept of free to play games, and players kind of resented those. I heard you say they often seem to be designed more as pay to win games, but then that evolved. And then now there's been this new evolution of like play to earn. And yet again, play to earn, I think, initially there was kind of like a lot of promise around it. And then now people are kind of aware that there can be problems where many of these people that are playing the games are more like mercenaries, just wanting to earn the token or earn whatever the money is. And then, not really interested in the game. So yeah. So how do you what do you think is the kind of best vision of how games can incorporate blockchain based tokens or assets? And do you think like play to earn is dead, or do you think it can be revised in some fashion?
My thesis around gaming monetization paradigms is that I personally think that Web3 is an evolution of free to play gaming rather than in itself a monetization strategy. So if you look at the evolution of free to play, essentially like gaming 20 years ago, the predominant gaming industry was really like premium games, right? I go to the store, I go to GameStop, I buy, I pay $40 for the latest, PlayStation game. And that is pretty much the end of my monetization for that game as a gamer, right? Until they came up with like the sequel. And then I might, buy that. And so like free to play is this concept that instead of having this activation of like $40 or whatever that is, $20 or whatever, in order for me to even start playing the game, it's free to play to begin with. And then essentially the monetization happens in game, right? I can accelerate my progression. I can, in various ways, I can buy certain things, like I can buy skins, cosmetic items in the game. And so essentially it's like, and actually it's the gaming industry, I think, adopting a lot of the mechanisms of consumer internet, which is that you monetize players depending on the segmentation of players. You're going to have player whales. You're going to have people that will never spend $1 in your game. However, you can monetize them via ads, right? And then you'll have people in between. Or you have people that you're not even monetizing in ads. However, they're adding to the overall player base. And so it is adding to the overall experience of all the players, if it's like a social sort of multiplayer game. And so this concept of segmentation of players and then optimization of the lifetime value by segmented players actually just has given birth to this sort of crop of evergreen games, games much larger from both a player base and also a monetization, like total revenue perspective, than ever seen before. And sort of like all the largest games like in the world now are pretty much free to play, whether it's League of Legends, Riot game, and then or like Fortnite or Genshin Impact and others. And then within that, it's free, like Web3 or having kind of like tokenized in-game currency or sort of NFT, which is really just like another type of like in-game item, is just like adding what is an open economy to previously closed economy, almost like it's like simulations of open economy. Right now is like actually full economy because a player can just trade that token openly on an exchange or trade that NFT openly in exchange. And it adds a level of difficulty for game designers and game economists to balance the various parts of that game economy because it's now so open. But it also potentially like makes, for example, an open world MMO game feels even more real. And it also allows like new innovative ways of gameplay now that it's totally open. And also it helps, it unlocks a few more levers. For example, we have seen, for example, Parallel Life, like in others, that even before the game is launched, how do you actually engage and start building the community around that game before it launches? Well, if you launch an NFT collection that people know that they can then utilize in game later, but it immediately has some amount of like value, and then there's like ways that they can start interacting with the community, then you're essentially building this pre-built like passionate community that has skin in the game because they've actually bought something in your game far before your game has actually launched. And it's a way of then basically dropping a active community into your game on day one. Now, there's definitely a backlash. Like this is part of the backlash where some gamers are like, wow, you're literally selling me these NFTs on this future promise that you're going to deliver me a great gaming product. And are you actually going to ever launch this gaming product? When are you launching this? A lot of times the products have made at times like, $50 to $100 million or something like that on, NFT drops. And some of them get distracted because of that. And, they're less focused on making the game and things like that. And so, I understand why some players are frustrated with, the introduction, but at a pure sort of conceptual level, it basically just adds so many interesting levers for a game studio or a consumer brand, consumer internet company to play with like player and user reward and retention.
And what do you think about play to earn? Do you feel like that model is broken or do you feel like it's not? Like, just there are a lot of questions about it. I feel,
Yeah, I think it's a challenge model. I think when people say play to earn, what they mean is completely supplementing people's income with revenue that they're going to make in game. So the reality is that a type of play to earn has existed in gaming for the last 20 years, right? As in, people in Western markets have paid people in emerging markets to grind for items, for gold, etc., in games since like 20 years ago, since the old RuneScape days, or World of Warcraft, right? Gold farmers, and there's some people that can earn a living doing that, but that population of earners have always been dwarfed by the population of actual game players. And so in quote unquote play to earn, which is essentially borrowing that terminology from what was previously a gray market, right, or black market in games, you could still have absolutely populations of people who are earning a living playing games, grinding for items, etc. But personally, I always think it's going to be smaller than the actual player population, and by a very large margin. And so you'll have an industry there potentially, but I think it's going to be somewhat limited.
So obviously right now, with crypto entering kind of the gaming area, we are seeing that it's bumping up against some really basic facts about, executing transactions in crypto right now, which is that there's a lot more demand for block space than there actually is space. And so fees can be high. And gaming is one of those things where potentially you could have a lot of transactions. So how do you think games can kind of incorporate crypto now in a way that isn't either cost prohibitive or just something that is completely not fun as a user?
Yeah, so lots of different ways to incorporate Web3 elements to it. On the one hand, you can essentially just drop some cosmetic NFTs, which is no different from a game like launching skins for a character, which many free-to-play games have today, but that those skins can actually just be traded outside of the confines of the gaming studio. And that's all that is. NFT skin. And on the other end of the spectrum is, what if every single gaming transaction is actually carried out on chain? And I would say that pretty much today, that's virtually impossible. There is no public blockchain that has the throughput and that can sustain that kind of transaction volume for one of the major games. And that's totally fine. I mean, today games are starting with minting NFTs items on chain. And then I think promise is that in the future, as public blockchains scale, and L2s are helping with that, like Arbitrum, Starkware. And then you already have, for example, some of the alternative L1s like Solana and Polygon are able to be a lot cheaper, for example, than running transactions on Ethereum, and also a lot more environmental friendly at the moment. There are a lot of different ways that games can incorporate Web3 elements today. Games can launch a token as well. Game studios, obviously there's legal complexity with that. And so in terms of how do you launch that is one consideration, but then also a practical consideration is that actually it's a lot more easy to control and manage NFTs in your gaming environment than if you actually tokenize your in-game currency. Because once you do that, then you are essentially going to be actively balancing that currency. Otherwise, it's disrupting actual gameplay. And so we kind of encourage gaming studios to start with launching NFTs and then before launching their in-game token. But we have partnered with, for example, Comtus, which is a publicly traded Korean-based gaming company that launched Summoner's War, one of the largest mobile MMOs in the world. They've launched C2X on FTX, and they are embedding the C2X token in 10 games they have in their pipeline from here to the end of the year. They're also using the C2X token as part of their game's launchpad, which they partner with Terra blockchain with. And so a lot of utility for that token. And we think that's a really terrific way to embed a lot of utility right now in something. And we'll see how it goes, right? It's still super early in the experiment and in the roadmap, but early on, it's gotten a tremendous amount of user interest.
That is so interesting. One thing is that just the way you described it, at least I think in the US, that might be considered a security because there would be kind of like a centralized company that would be responsible for the success of that. But it sounds like in Korea, that's not how a security is defined, or?
Currently, they structure it in a way that they think is compliant. But there's a new administration currently in Korea that's actually very crypto friendly, and so there's lots of ongoing conversations around how to stay compliant at all times. And that's the thing, compliance is like an ever moving target, and it involves like regular conversations with the right regulators in order to always stay in lockstep.
Yeah. And I think it's confusing because different jurisdictions have different laws. But Do Kwon was on my show and talked about how friendly the South Korean president is to crypto. So, at the moment, as we discussed, there are kind of scaling issues when it comes to crypto gaming. But I think there are also other issues. And you kind of talked about some of them, but are there any other kind of user experience type issues that you feel that gaming needs to improve when it comes to adopting NFTs and other blockchain-based assets into games?
So I'll give you actually a really tangible example. At GDC, we also announced that FTX had acquired Storybook Brawl, which is an auto battler card game, sort of like a similar genre as Hearthstone, and it's very beloved. Like a lot of people play it at FTX. Actually, Sam's childhood friends with Matt, the CEO of Storybook Brawl, and that's how we got introduced. And when we announced the announcement, actually there was quite a lot of public sort of negativity around, now like Storybook Brawl is like selling out. They're gonna ruin the game by launching NFTs, et cetera. There's essentially this immediate visceral reaction by a vocal minority within the gaming community that NFT equals bad, like crypto equals bad, because there are actually scams and money grabs in the space, but there's also like really good teams and people trying to build something great for players. I will say that interestingly, I mean, because we are part of the same team now, that the announcement essentially, even though there was a negativity, it virtually did not impact the kind of engagement and player base in the game. In fact, some of the most vocal people, continue to play the game. And so that's, and actually Storybook, and we got a lot of people saying, hey, love this development, really excited to see the innovations here. I'm not going to post anything publicly because I don't want to get torn down by people on Twitter. And so I come back to the fact that it's a vocal minority. And again, we totally understand that the proof is on the crypto and gaming community to actually create fun experiences for gamers, and rather than not fun experiences for gamers where it's just kind of like a token money grab. That responsibility is definitely on the developer side. But I think, and so I don't want to make light of people's negativity, but I do think it's still the minority. We've gotten a lot of support and a lot of people that are really excited to see where that team is going to take the innovation.
Yeah, I've experienced something similar where you have a large group and then there's one small vocal minority that cares a lot about one issue, and they make so much noise and frankly will attack anyone who doesn't agree with them. So then you end up getting flooded with private messages of people who disagree with them but don't want to say it publicly. So that is happened to me.
It's interesting how that happens. And at the end of the day, these are developers that are pouring their heart into making great product, and it's disheartening for them to see the negativity online. And so, I really hope that over time that we're just going to launch great experiences, and then people will just see that as proof in itself.
So in a moment, we'll talk more about this backlash against crypto NFTs by normies. But first, a quick word from the sponsors who make this show possible. Finance is changing. Strategies are changing. Holding is changing. Beefy Finance, the multi-chain yield optimizer, allows you to maximize passive income while you sleep. Simply deposit your crypto into Beefy's secure, industry-leading auto-compounding vaults to put your funds to work. Each one of Beefy's 740 vaults automatically reinvests the interest gained on your crypto deposits, earning you more while saving you time and fees. Beefy's strategies create bank-busting APYs with 0% deposit fees at the click of a button. Join $1.4 billion of investments and understand why so many users trust Beefy with their financial independence. Visit beefy.finance and take control of your financial future. Join over 10 million people using Crypto.com, the easiest place to buy, earn, and spend over 150 cryptocurrencies. New users enjoy zero credit card fees on crypto purchases in their first 30 days. With Crypto.com Earn, you can get industry-leading interest rates of up to 8.5% on over 40 coins, including Bitcoin, and earn up to 14% on stablecoins. With the Crypto.com Visa card, you can spend your crypto anywhere. Enjoy up to 8% cash back instantly, plus 100% rebates for your Netflix, Spotify, and Amazon Prime subscriptions, and 0 annual fees. Download the Crypto.com app and get $25 with the code LAURA. Link in the description. It's becoming clear that utility is the future of NFT technology. And no launch platform does utility better than Galaxis. Anyone with a community can now engage with, reward, and monetize their following by issuing an NFT collection with dynamic utility traits. These traits can be customized to the needs of a particular community and change over time, allowing the creator to sustain a prolonged relationship with their most valuable followers. Visit galaxis.xyz to learn more. Building the next big thing in crypto? Cross River has your back. Whether you are a crypto exchange, NFT marketplace, or wallet, Cross River's integrated API-based platform provides the payments solutions you need to grow. Cross River is powering the future of financial services. A CryptoFin Industry Award winner and an early partner for companies like Coinbase, Cross River's tech stack supports crypto partners and enables real-time money movement for consumers. Welcome to a new world of crypto-friendly banking. Request your fiat on-off-ramp solution now at crossriver.com/crypto. Back to my conversation with Amy. So I actually want to just kind of give listeners a sense of, what this pushback has looked like. We've seen when companies like EA and Team 17 have made announcements about NFTs, then they've had to pull back from their plans. There was a company, Ubisoft, which definitely faced quite harsh criticism, but they actually didn't reverse course. There was Valve, which owns the online game store Steam, and they decided to prohibit blockchain games that use NFTs. And then the head of Microsoft Xbox said that he saw NFTs as exploitative. So, I actually thought before I kind of looked into this deeply that most people were just upset about the environmental impact of crypto, is what they think of it, or NFTs, because they seem to not be aware of the nuances between different consensus algorithms. But I actually read in this one New York Times article about this backlash that actually some of this stems from kind of some users protesting that video game companies have been trying to nickel and dime them for a long time. And so they view NFTs as just another manifestation of companies trying to do that. So as you're kind of navigating this world, how much of this do you think is a negative response to crypto or NFTs themselves versus kind of protest that stems from the past behavior of gaming companies?
I think it's a mix of all of that. Gamers have historically been very sensitive to any disruption or bastardization of, their beloved products. In MMOs, since the dawn of time, when the game maker has kind of made a pretty big change and introduced, new economies and new markets into some of these games, you get absolute rioting. Actually, when I was at Insight, we had a bomb scare from the RuneScape players because we had done something on the monetization side that people really, really hated. I mean, players are hyper passionate about people not messing with their product. And so therefore it's it's not a surprise that they're worried about bad players in the crypto world and the money grab and the scams, et cetera. I really feel for that. And there are, I think, just right ways and wrong ways of implementing some of these Web3 components. For example, in the true spirit of free to play, I don't think it should cost like a few $100s for somebody to start playing. Like anyone should be able to start playing a game. Like it shouldn't cost like 2 ETH to buy an in-game NFT. It should be essentially affordable to absolutely everybody. And maybe there are some rare items though that you're pricing differently. And quite frankly, like even today, as a player, you can grind for a rare item, or you can like buy a rare item from like a in-game marketplace, right? And I don't think that's crazy at all for for the NFT version of that item to have a similar type of like marketplace. And I think following this kind of ethos, like allowing players to be able to grind their way to like get their NFTs, which for example is like what Ubisoft had done with their NFT collection, I think are all like really equitable ways of offering that to players. And so I think like that's one way to potentially start bridging that. But it's actually got to the point where like, game makers and game executives that go out publicly against NFTs and crypto, this is like kind of like the populist view right now. And just like free to play mobile gaming, I am personally pretty bullish that as soon as there's such a pipeline of incredible games being built right now, and it seems unlikely that one or a few of them aren't going to be absolute breakout hits. And when that happens, like, I think people will see, oh, like actually it's kind of convenient to be able to grind for my items and then be able to openly trade them as well. Like for the people who want that. And for people who don't, they can literally keep playing the way that they have always. I find it really interesting because, at FTX Ventures, I do a lot of Web3 investing. So I also, for example, an investor in Yuga Labs. I'm on the board of the Apecoin DAO, and then I look at a lot of sort of NFT projects. And also like with my FTX hat, also talk to large consumer brands and internet companies in their kind of exploration of Web3. And the negativity is like way less pronounced, I would say, across other parts of consumer, the intersection of consumer internet and Web3. Like I think that there's like this particular thread of pretty deep vein of negativity in gaming right now that I think is like a moment in time, or at least I hope it is, that isn't actually shared by some of the largest prominent brands in the world that are interested in experimenting with NFTs and Web3 as a means to provide like, rewards and engagement, because they see it as like just part of the cultural zeitgeist of what's happening right now. And like, I think that's literally what it is. It's less about the technology and more about it capturing the consumer imagination. Cultural imagination, celebrity imagination, and that's what makes this movement cool for a lot of people.
So a couple of things. So the first thing is you said something like about how you don't feel that it should cost 2 ETH to buy one of your in-game assets, which sort of seems like a little bit of a knock against Axey Infinity. And I wondered, generally, do you feel, because obviously now we have these different guilds that try to help people with that. Are you sort of like down on that whole model, or what's your?
I'm not so much down on them as in like it was hugely innovative, right? Like Axey Infinity had 2 million DAUs. That is like that makes them one of the most like the biggest like gaming like games titles in the world. However, I think that like if you look at like high spending, traditional kind of like Western audience or broader like gaming audience, like there's just like a very like if it's going to cost you like $300 in order to start playing a game, like you are very much capping your total addressable market. And that's why like the predominant model in gaming today is actually free to play rather than like premium games. It depends on like how big you want your addressable market.
And in general, how do you think the crypto community or the NFT community or the gaming community, like the heads of these gaming studios that want to incorporate NFTs, how do you think that those people should address this animosity or try to kind of like, lessen the backlash that we're seeing from normies?
Yeah, I think because of the of this kind of backlash, more gaming studios are like, I'm not going to announce anything. I'm just going to launch a great beta, and then people are going to discover that they can actually own their assets. And I think that's pretty clever, rather than like what I had mentioned before, which is you can also just launch your NFTs early and ride that wave. I think more studios are like, I'm going to launch a great product first and show people that I can launch great products, and then sort of, announce like the Web3 components to it. And then other people are using, and like, in crypto, we kind of have like a brand marketing issue. What does NFT really actually even mean? We can just call them like in-game items or something like that, right? Like, I think that the names and the terminology itself is like causing some like heartburn for a lot of people. And so some studios are getting like very creative around that. And also like, so I would say like a lot of people are worried about nickel and diming, but I would say like, the way that economics work and incentives work with Web3 is that it can be actually a lot more equitable, right? So like, for example, today, if you're an artist and you created an item that generates $1 billion of revenue for a gaming company, because it's like the number one gaming skin or something like that, you're probably going to be paid like $50,000 as an artist for that gaming studio or however amount. Versus like, imagine if you actually can get like some sort of royalty or some sort of cut in perpetuity of that item being sold. Well, a Web3 token is like, can actually like create that incentive model in a lot more easier than traditional model today. Although, I mean, there's obviously like regulatory issues, that you need to work through with that. But, I think that's like super interesting.
So now let's talk about mergers and acquisitions, since that's obviously a big part of your job. In January, FTX raised $400 million, and CEO Sam Bankman-Fried said that most of those funds would go toward M&A. So what's your vision there for deploying those funds? Where are you concentrating and why?
We're looking at a number of areas on the M&A front. To date, we haven't done like a large transaction yet, but definitely have the capital and very interested in exploring. And they're across the different areas, right? One is just like, we are in so many markets globally, and in some of those, some of the biggest crypto markets, we are looking to buy, partner, sell strategy into expanding our market share in those markets. And then also, we are seeing this opportunity in consumer right now. And so whether it's consumer fintech or consumer internet companies that have tens of millions of users, that have a management team and founders that are super Web3 curious, super crypto curious. And we just see a lot of like strategic and vision alignments with what we're also trying to do. That's also a great opportunity for us, whether it's in the US or globally. We also have a product roadmap, with our own sort of core sort of infrastructure software. And as we see opportunities to accelerate that roadmap, like we will also look at, strategic opportunities there as well. We have dozens of conversations, around the globe happening, and at the highest level, we're looking for sort of visioned and philosophical alignments. And at the end of the day at FTX, we would like to power as much of the world's crypto transactions as we can. And that's, hopefully going to be across the exchange and FTX Pay and our NFT marketplace, et cetera. And also kind of white labeling our product. And so in that vision, like we're looking for strategic alignment partnerships.
So FTX has been pretty affiliated with Solana, which is a newer smart contract blockchain. It's obviously taken off hugely in the last year and a half or so. And so a number of the partnerships and investments so far that you've made are to push things in the Solana ecosystem or get more people into Solana. And yet, obviously still the Ethereum ecosystem is pretty dominant. I was curious to hear what you think the future of layer one will look like. Do you think it's going to be multi-chain? Do you think there will be one dominant chain or a few of them? And kind of what do you think is the future for Ethereum?
Yeah. So we are, we're a cross-chain platform, FTX's. Solana is, one of our closest partners. And the team is phenomenal. They've built a product that is cheap and also much more scaled today than others out there. We're also really close with the Ethereum community and, our investors in Arbitrum and Starkware and layer twos. But then we're also close with other L1s like Near and Polygon, Avalanche, et cetera, and constantly exploring, new layer one blockchains. Although right now, when I think about the blockchain ecosystem, a couple of thoughts come up. One is that we're still at a time when right now, like some of the best teams are exploring blockchain technology and are, starting to build consumer and enterprise products on chain. And that is going to drive the next phase of evolution, like mainstream adoption of crypto. It's going to take killer apps built on blockchain, essentially. We saw in the first wave, we had DeFi Summer, and then we have a lot of games being built on chain right now. But I think, we've seen some amount of stalling, I would say, in the DeFi space across chain. And so we're also kind of on the lookout for more innovative products in the space. I would say that probably like the AIDS lending protocol is like less exciting than like something that is truly innovative. And, if you're doing kind of like complex or derivative yield protocols on chain, well, that's a specific, I think it's like a more niche like audience that you're going to be addressing. Large funds though, so like these protocols could be large, but again, like from a total number of addressable users, just smaller. And so we're really looking for innovative use cases in crypto, in mainstream applications that are interested in building on chain and really leveraging the blockchain technology in order to provide faster transactions or more secure or like more permissionless. And like there's different reasons to build on chain, utilize the incentivization model of a token, use token gating, et cetera. And there are dozens of layer one blockchains right now because it turns out that it's easy to raise money for a layer one. And also, the token around a layer one accrues value quickly. I think it's fairly unsustainable. You essentially need the long-term sustainability of any single blockchain ecosystem relies on having a deep community of strong developers building useful and killer apps on top of that. And so I do think that over time, we're going to have a few winners in the layer one space, and of course, like Ethereum is still like the largest ecosystem, in the NFT side, but then also in DeFi. And I think there's room for, a few chains to have dominance, and then you'll have over time, and we're already seeing it this year, a rich ecosystem of infrastructure and dev tooling on top of these blockchains in order for a developer to, for example, build their product on one ecosystem and then potentially go cross-chain in a safer and faster way. Although currently cross-chain bridging is one of the most vulnerable parts of crypto. Pretty much all of the major exploits have happened on these cross-chain bridges. And so we will see, as there is innovation in the space, ways to fix the problem of rug pulls and hacks in this space, which I don't know, I'd probably argue is probably the single most reason that some of the biggest companies in the world are feeling a little bit maybe like not going all in on building on chain yet, although most of them are experimenting. So those are some thoughts.
That makes a lot of sense to me, because I do agree with you that it feels right now like there's so many vulnerabilities and they're constantly being exploited. And we even have North Korean hackers going after some of these projects. So clearly, there's a lot of interest by nefarious actors. One thing that you talked about in there was about mainstream adoption. And I know that you guys recently sponsored the Coachella Music Festival. Can you talk a little bit about like that strategy and, what it is that you get out of doing these types of sponsorships?
Yeah, so my colleague Tristan, who's head of strategy for FTX US, really led that project for us. He's been working on it for the last year, along with other folks on the FTX team, and we're a sponsor for a partner with Coachella for the next couple of years, including this year. I was just there. It was weekend one. It was amazing, and what we had was NFT activation where people on the ground and at Coachella grounds can actually collect tied with actually like a unique code on the wristband, a unique Coachella NFT, and some of them are able to get rare NFTs, and we did that in collaboration with a few awesome artists. And we also had done a drop with like Coachella keys that did really well, where people get lifetime membership or tickets to Coachella if they own one of these like limited keys. And so really awesome experimentation. And Coachella is one of the largest music festivals in the world. I mean, something like 150,000 to 200,000 people will attend over 2 weekends. And so if you imagine, something like 80,000 people were at Coachella week 1, and we had something like 30,000 people sign up for our NFT, I think like midway through weekend 1. And so it was, I think, like one of the largest activations for NFTs in the world, like ever. And it was just awesome to see people with such a positive reaction to it. And they were just having a lot of fun with it. And so we see this as like a really awesome example of really like mainstream interaction with Web3. And we're really excited to continue working on that with Coachella and with some of our other partners as well.
And I'm also been noticing, along this adoption theme, that you've also been doing a lot of deals involving, other countries. Like you have had a number of announcements involving India, such as a partnership with Yield Guild Games India and with something called Super Team DAO, which is to help foster Solana projects in India. And you also have a partnership with, I guess it's Aza Finance in Africa. Or ASA, I'm not sure. It's headed by Elizabeth Rosiello, who was the first podcast guest ever on Unchained. She's amazing.
Oh my God.
I need to have her back actually because
Elizabeth is amazing.
People have requested her back. She's so fascinating. But I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you see these opportunities around the globe and how that's affecting your strategy.
Yeah, every market is so different. I mean, some markets that I'm spending a lot of time on right now include, certainly India, like you mentioned, Japan, Korea, Indonesia. And then, we have a whole team.
About what it is about those particular economies that interest you? I
mean, I'll give Korea as an example. Korea essentially has one of the deepest crypto penetration sort of in the world, right? It's one of the top 3. It's one of our top 3 markets, and it's one of the top 3 markets for crypto in terms of total volumes traded, like in the world. And also just Korea is interesting. I mean, I'll put my gaming hat back on. Consistently, Korea is probably 5 years plus ahead. At least I'm going to speak for gaming because I know other industries less than that from an tech innovation perspective than almost any other market. There is a deep adoption and acceptance of new technologies. I'll give an example. Nexon, one of the gaming studios, they had acquired actually like 2 Korea exchanges 4 years ago. And if you look at actually Pan Asia, you've got Line Games, you've got, which is more like lines like Japan, but then you've got other teams that actually have been building blockchains themselves and wallets, et cetera, for years. I mean, this is how far ahead they are, right? And so as a result, it's an extremely important market for us. And it's also a heavily regulated market so that only a few entities actually have banking licenses so that Korean consumers are able to buy crypto from fiat currency. And so, it's important for us to partner with multiple players there. And so we've been spending a lot of time. I'm going to Korea myself, like later in May, super excited to meet some of our partners. And so that's an example of a market that is like super distinct and has very deep adoption and has a rich ecosystem of partners that we can, work with. But, take that and then you take like Indonesia, you take India, every market is distinct in itself. It has a distinct like history of regulatory, development and a distinct ecosystem of like large players in the space that are doing really interesting things in the market. You have, for example, in India, you've got players like Dream 11 that are, experimenting in the space, and they're probably the largest fantasy gaming company in the world. I mean, they have hundreds of millions of users, and so like a company like that is just like, I'm super fascinated to see what they end up doing in the space, because these are the companies that are going to bring mainstream adoption in crypto, and many of whom we hope to partner with in these jurisdictions.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. I agree with you about how all of these different economies are so different. And yeah, I have relatives who live in Korea, and definitely sometimes they will come to the US and they will make fun of how the US is behind in technology, and my mother will get annoyed. So yes, we know that they're advanced over there. So let's switch topics and talk about Apecoin. You're on the Apecoin DAO board. How did that come about?
So I was introduced to the community, sort of like the Bored Ape community, some months ago. And I think they were, as like the DAO was coming together as a way for certainly Bored Ape enthusiasts and NFT holders and community members to come and have a way to like create awesome projects and launch their own token and sort of kind of innovate in IP space and find collaborations. Like they were kind of thinking through like board members that were pretty deeply entrenched in crypto, but then also had a passion for the community and a desire to play essentially like a helping hand in setting up the DAO and setting up and helping sort of guide the governance of it. And so, I was asked to join and was super thrilled to join what was, kind of like one of the most innovative DAOs like in the world. And also just such a passionate community. And so, I mean, the idea is that, I'd have a six-month term and that the board members, which also include Yacht, who's the founder of Animoca, and Alexis Ohanian of Reddit, and also Maria from Sound Ventures and Dean from Horizon Labs, that we would come together and basically help set up an infrastructure and kind of really support sort of core contributors to then hand over like the day-to-day governance to the next set of sort of core contributors of the Ape DAO, Apecoin DAO. And so, yeah, we've been pretty hard at work doing that and meeting regularly. It's been super humbling, scary, like exciting, all sorts of emotions, because when you have such a passionate and vocal community that have their own opinions about where to take a DAO and a beloved IP like Bored Apes, and you're constantly throwing that needle between doing the right thing and then also trying to not have, like certain individuals maybe like kind of overpower the conversation with self-interest. You're trying to guide the conversation to the best interest of the general community. And that's ultimately not everyone's going to agree with the path. But we've been really trying to thread that needle and obviously have so much more that we can be doing and a lot that we were trying to do already, lots in store. But it's been like a pretty awesome journey. Yacht's been putting himself out there with like a couple of the staking proposals and he's been doing like a phenomenal job with that. It's scary when people start attacking you personally, and I had experiences back when I was involved with a sushi DAO, like Sushi Stop DAO as well. And but you gotta just try to not take things personally and just trying to do the best it can for the community.
If you're interested in these issues, I feel like you should read my book, because this was kind of the exact dilemma that played out in Ethereum's early years. But you tweeted that the Bored Ape Yacht Club, or that you think the Bored Ape Yacht Club is becoming the Disney of our generation. Can you talk about like what your vision is of, where Bored Ape Yacht Club is going, and then like how you think that vision will blend with this kind of like DAO ownership, and just how hard it is really to have a community kind of execute on a vision like that.
Yeah. So then I'm switching over my hats because I'm also an investor with FTX Ventures in Yuga Labs, which is a holding company for Bored Ape Yacht Club, IP, also CryptoPunks and Meebits. And yeah, I mean, Yuga Labs is headed up by Nicole Muniz and then her team. And they're like visionary in terms of the plans that they have in building sort of metaverse game, but then also other games within the metaverse, and then other collabs, whether it's like in the commerce space to the to media to sort of shows, etc. That they have like kind of that they're brainstorming and a lot like sort of like in and process of building out. It's an incredibly expansive vision, and they think about companies like a Disney as like North Star in the sense that, you know, the company has incredibly valuable IP, for example, Bored Ape Yacht Club, that then can be essentially activated in so many amazing consumer products, whether that's in the form of merchandise or a movie or a game, et cetera. And of course, like now the sort of like the responsibility is to create these amazing consumer experiences. But I think, you know, it's like an incredibly like hardworking and solid team operating kind of at the helm of Yuga, along with the original founders, you know, that are involved in the creative side day to day as they're building towards this. These consumer products are not built overnight, you know, like they're built over years, and that's sort of like the time frame that the team has in terms of building out this brand.
And then, like, you know, what do they see as kind of their purview, and what do they see as the DAO's purview?
Yeah, I mean, the DAO is Yuga Labs is building out the business for Yuga Labs, and then the DAO is essentially a sort of like a sister community, right? That is really meant for the community around this IP to take charge, take governance, and also, you know, kind of do what they want with the token to just generate like IP and projects, et cetera. I mean, obviously, like there's partnership in that, but I think it's pretty awesome. Like you have a kind of like the centralized company that owns one set of IP, and then their sister community that is able to actively participate as part of the DAO.
So I did hear that some people in the Apecoin community felt that there wasn't a need for Bored Ape Yacht Club to have its own coin, which is this Apecoin that we have been talking about, or Ape. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I would say that not everyone can afford a $250,000 NFT. And actually, I think it's very democratizing to have a token that people can buy one of for a fraction of the cost and still feel like they're part of the community, and they can vote as part of the community and vote as part of the DAO, and be an active participant and speculate if they want to, or use it more as like their and then eventually, you know, as there are more projects that come online that utilize the token, that they can, you know, participate in that and build in that if they want to. So I think of it as a democratizing move.
And then for Ape itself, like, would have to happen for that coin to rise in value? Like, what is the, you know, price indicative of?
If you ask that of any crypto token, it's like literally nobody in the world can predict, like on a short and medium term, where the price goes. We can't even predict that for FTT, our token. I mean, in general, in terms of a long-term perspective, it's like if you are generating valuable projects and building valuable projects and partnering with projects that embed the tokens that have a lot of usage, generally that should be in line with generating value for the token. And I think we have seen that in like some of the more popular tokens like Ethereum or, for example, FTT and Solana and others. And hopefully that will be the Apecoin as well. And you can see, you know, like I think some of the prices reacting around the projects that will be launched. And then obviously there's a lot of responsibility in these projects actually being great experiences and fun experiences for the community and the user base. And so, but it's not like a one-time thing. It's like over time, there will be dozens and dozens of projects launched. And hopefully like over time, there'll be like a very valuable body of assets that the token holders can, you know, participate in. And that is all correlated with long-term price.
And I think there are also maybe questions about whether or not Ape is a security. What do you have to say about that?
I think that, you know, we're all kind of in crypto waiting to see what the black and white lines are that defines a token as a security. And I think that the team that launched the token has done pretty much everything in their power to try to align with like the latest sort of guidance that they have around it to have it not be a token. But again, there's like not that much like hardline regulations around that. And so they'll adjust like as there is.
Yeah. And obviously Gary Gensler has the head of the SEC now might have different views than even predecessors. So in an announcement video, Yuga Labs said that Other Side, which seems to be this like metaverse that they're launching, will be coming in April. We are recording this on April 20th. Should we be expecting something imminently, or, kind of what can we expect?
They do have some imminent, I think, activities that people are discussing today. But in terms of like the metaverse game, like what I would say is that a metaverse game is a multi-year endeavor, right? Like they're like, Yuga is going to be launching components of it continuously, but it's not like a huge game is going to launch all in one go. Like really, the beauty of a open world type of game, which is what this Other Side vision is that experiences and games within Other Side are going to launch over the next number of years, and that's what's we're most excited about.
All right, so we're a bit more than a quarter of the way into 2022. What new developments or trends are you watching for the rest of the year?
I think that NFTs have done better than we expected. It is an asset class within crypto that has taken a life of its own that's quite separate from the hardcore DeFi community. And it's being increasingly coming up in conversation with the biggest brands in the world. There's hardly one that's not thinking about it, and so I think we're within, let's say, 12 to 18 months of very awesome, creative, and not, experiments and brands launching things in the space. And what I'm super excited about is utility, just PFP projects, less interesting, I think, for everybody now, right? Utility, much more interesting, whether it's membership gating, access to experiences, et cetera. That's so much more interesting. So, I spend most of my time Web3, and I will continue to. There's so much activity going on, across the world and across new companies building the space. So large companies building the space. And whereas at the beginning of the year, I was sort of regretting how most of the space is actually just picks and shovels plays in the NFT world. Actually, we're seeing amazing projects launching. I mean, Moonbirds, obviously, Kevin Rose's project recently, and others in pipeline. And I would say that, at the beginning of the year, I think we all sort of predicted that it was going to be a big year for blockchain infrastructure, and that will continue to be an area of intense interest. Some of the strongest blockchain developers right now are building in sort of the picks and shovels infrastructure space, and so we're really excited about that. Although what this space needs is more killer apps. And so that's what I'm really excited about finding and investing in is really strong traditional teams, for me, particularly in consumer, that are looking to build the next dating app or social network or, other sort of consumer apps, embedding Web3 elements token, fungible, non-fungible tokens in really creative ways, live streaming shopping. I'm interested in those use cases because I think that's what's really going to bring the next 100 million to billion users in crypto. And that's what I'm most excited about still.
I don't even know what that means. Live streaming shopping, and how would that incorporate NFTs or crypto?
So hypothetically, if obviously live streaming shopping is huge in Asia.
Does that literally mean I walk around from shop to shop and I live stream myself shopping, or I don't get what that means?
Okay, so the core use case would be you are logging onto a website and watching an influencer, essentially, it's basically modern QVC, right? You're watching an influencer sell items, a lot of which are collectibles, right? And it's a form of entertainment. Basically, it's imagine if I'm watching YouTube or streaming, but now I can buy the item as well. And that's basically live stream shopping. And it's huge in China and some other Asian markets. And there's a couple of companies Pop Shop Live and others in the US that are earlier stage that are trying to make that happen here. And so imagine if one of these platforms can incorporate like a token as a means to essentially like rewards, membership. Maybe you get free shipping if you launch, if you like own the token that the platform has launched. The influencers can sell NFTs as well. Like on the platform, they're already selling a lot of collectibles. A lot of them are selling like sneakers and mystery boxes and things like that. So I think it's like, I'm just giving that as one example. Another use case that I just haven't really seen yet that I would love to is the intersection of like Web3 and dating apps. Like, how do people incentivize maybe like friends introducing their friends to dates, utilizing tokens in some way? That would be super interesting. And so, yeah.
But like how? How would you incorporate that?
Maybe you can get rewarded more tokens if you introduce a friend to a date where they go on a third date or something like that, right? You're incentivizing great dates referrals. I'm just throwing that idea out there.
Yeah, or you get like 10 times the amount of tokens if they actually get married.
Oh my God, yeah, or like 100 times, right? That's priceless. Yeah.
I actually know some people who are extremely good at this and like have, set up multiple couples. So
yeah. So then it's like, okay, you get cred, you are a hyper connector of people on dates and high quality dates. And so therefore maybe you have like a higher score. And so you can like collect, like you get dropped like more valuable NFTs or something like that. I don't know. Like there's a lot of different ways to potentially get that. I think I had tweeted about this once and then people were like, no, this sounds like it's a terrible idea. And I'm like, honestly, I would love to see this in practice.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where, it depends on the implementation. I could see it going wrong, but it could also work. Well, this has been super fun. Thank you so much for coming on Unchained. Where can people learn more about you and FTX?
So both FTX and also myself, we're very active on Twitter. So you can find me at Amy Tongwu, my handle on Twitter, and my DMs are open for folks that want to reach out.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much, Laura, for having me today.
Thanks so much for joining us today. To learn more about Amy, FTX, and gaming, check out the show notes for this episode. Unchained is produced by me, Laura Shin, with help from Anthony Yoon, Daniel Nuss, Mark Murdoch, Shashank, and CLK Transcription. Thanks for listening.